All right, guys, how's it going? Today is actually Monday for me, but it's going to be Tuesday for you. Today we're doing Tuesdays work here. We're getting into a whole new section. I want to get a filming on this early. So we're doing, oops, not right there. We're right here on the second. In the lesson 23, pages 459 to 462. Watch the video because it makes it easier. We're going to go ahead and go through, because this is the very first introductory lesson to this. So I highly recommend that you actually watch the whole thing so we can try to build some stuff. It's just like any other introduction to stuff in the classroom. We're actually in the classroom. A lot of it is stuff that we need to talk about and go over to make sense of and start building this knowledge. So our learning target is interpret division of unit fractions by a non-zero whole number and compute such quotients, okay? So that is, we're looking at division with unit fractions, okay? Real fast. I mean, we're gonna do the vocabulary here for unit fractions. So let's just jump over here right now. Let's just talk about unit fractions and get this going here, okay? Here's some examples and non-examples and things like that. Remember, yours can be a variety of different things. Let's talk about this. I'll put this on the screen. Obviously, you can pause and write some things down, but I want to actually just talk about it first here, okay? So a fraction with a numerator of 1, okay, is a unit fraction. So 1/2, 1/3, okay, 1/4, okay, 1/10, 1/12, things like that. Those are all unit fractions, okay? So it's one part of whatever the unit is. So it's like, so again, even if it's like something like 1/24th, now those aren't common, but there still are unit fractions. So, but a number with a numerator of 1. Okay, so these are examples, some illustrations that show 1/4 and 1/2. Okay, down here we're looking at different fractions down here as well. See, half, thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, so on and so forth. Non-examples would be 2/3, 5/4, and 1/2. Okay, so this is the ones I want to talk about specifically as non-examples. Again, obviously 2/3 is not because it doesn't have 1 in 5/4. 5/4 is actually equal to 1 1/4. 5/4 is an improper fraction, so improper fractions obviously aren't going to be unit fractions. But also mixed numbers are not unit fractions. Now you might be like, well, Mr. Smasher, there's a half in there. Well, yeah, that half part would be unit fraction on its own, but not on its own. It's actually 3/2, right, as a fraction of the whole value of that number. Okay, so again, obviously, if you want to write this stuff down, pause it and do that. I'm going to make sure it's clear for you, like last time we did this. So it should be a little bit clearer now. There you go. Okay, so hopefully that helps as far as getting you guys started as we think about no answers. Okay, I want to talk through this, so not just copy things down right away as you have to listen to me as I talk. Okay, let's look at this here. Okay, so what we're going to be looking at here is Mrs. Cook wants to share 1/4 of a pound of fish equally amongst her 3 cats. How much fish does each cat get? Okay, so again, there's 3 cats. We're going to divide it equally amongst the 3 cats. We have 1/4 of a pound. So a way to solve this is we can draw an area model to solve this, right? We know length times width equals area, right? So using that concept of multiplication that we've already did, we just did this stuff, right? So if we apply what we just did to this, because division is the inverse of multiplication, so we should be good. It should still work, just tweaking it a little bit here, right? So the idea is, if we draw this area model, and we only have one part, we need to finish the other part. So let's say we have the length here or whatever. I'm assuming that this is actually a 1 by 1. This is whole thing. This whole square represents 1 pound, right? So it's 1 pound, okay? And so that is, this is 1/4 of a pound, okay? This is 1/4 of a pound. Now it says we're going to share it and divide it equally amongst 3 cats. Hi, Riley. I know you watch the videos. I figured that you'd like the cat saying hi to you. Anywho, I have 1/4 of a pound here. I'm going to share amongst 3 cats. So if I divide this, I'm just going to divide it into 3 groups. So the idea is it's going to be, now they're not equal. They should be equal. I'm drawing it, you know, just like you. So this would be cat 1, cat 2 and cat 3. So this cat gets this amount, this cat gets this amount, this cat gets this amount, right? Well, so we just divided it up, and the question is how much is, so how much will each cat get? So we just did division here, and the question is how much is this square here? How much is that cat getting? Well, that is equal to that and is equal to that because we did it in equal parts, right? Again, the drawing's not great, but it's okay. Right, cat? Yep. Okay. So the idea is that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 by 1, 2, 3. So there are twelfths, right? There are 12 twelfths in the whole thing, and 1 is equal to 1/12, obviously, right? So each cat will get how much of a pound? What fraction of a pound? They'll get 1/12 of a pound. Easy peasy. We just did some division, didn't we? So we're going to complete this equation here. So we just did 1/4 divided by 3. 1/4 divided into 3 groups, okay? And we got 1/12. Okay? Sweet. So we just divided a unit fraction by a whole number. And we got it right. Cool. Remember, we're dividing by something that's larger than 1, so the fraction, whatever we're dividing is going to get smaller, right? And 1/12 is smaller than a fourth. So it's getting smaller because we're dividing it into smaller pieces because we're sharing it, right? Remember, when we divide, we're doing one of two things. We're either finding a number of groups, or finding the value of each part, okay? So there's two different things that we find when we divide. And in this situation, we're finding the value of each part or the value of one part, right? Okay, so that's what happened here. Okay, let's look at the next part here. It says, look at the problem about Mrs. Cook again. Complete the statements below to solve the same division problem using multiplication. So this is the idea that we're thinking about multiplication in order to solve this problem. Okay, each cat will get blank of 1/4. Each cat will get how much of 1/4? If this is 1/4, right? This vertical is 1/4. How much of 1/4 does each cat get? Okay, of 1/4. Now we know that the value is 12, right? So we got to think to ourselves, well, okay, if how much of 1/4 would equal 1/12 then, right? Well, it would be 1/3 of 1/4. 1/3 of 1/4. Okay, so 1/3 of 1/4 is equal to 1/12, right? So write a multiplication equation and tell how much fish each cat gets. So it'd be 1/3 of, remember we talk about multiplying when we say of, 1/4. Okay, that equals 1/12 because we just multiply across it, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. All right, so again, hopefully you can already start seeing some relationships here. If we divide it by a third, now if I rewrite this as 1/4 times 1/3, if I wrote it this way, so it's in the same orientation, meaning the 1/4 is first. Hopefully you can make a connection between this 3, and this third here. Just hint, hint. Look for patterns, right? Always looking for patterns. All right, let's go to the next page here. Okay, another problem here. Focus. There we go. Okay, another problem here. Mr. Putnam wants to cut a 3-foot rope into 1/4 foot pieces. How many 1/4 foot pieces can he cut? All right, so again, we're taking a rope that's 3 feet long, okay? And he wants to cut it into 1/4 foot pieces. Then how many 1/4 foot pieces can he cut? All right, sounds almost like a tongue twister if it wanted to be. Here we go. If we have a 3-foot long rope and we cut it into 1/4 foot pieces, then the question is how many 1/4 foot pieces do we get? Can he make out of this? We can do this, and we talked about there's 2 different things we're finding when we divide. In this situation, we're finding the total number of pieces, the total number of parts of a certain size. That certain size is 1/4, right? So how many groups of 1/4 do we have? That's what we're trying to figure out here, aren't we? Okay, so let's do it. This is 3 feet, meaning that of this 3 feet, we broke it into 1 foot sections. We always wanted in relationship to 1 to make our life easy. So now each of these holes, each of these ones, this is 1, this is 1, and this is 1, right? We're going to break these up into how many parts? Into 4 parts each, right? Because we're getting them into fourths. And our 1 hole is made out of 4 fourths. So we want to make these into fourths, don't we? So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So as you can see, in this one, there are 4 parts. In this one, there are 4 parts. And in this one, there are 4 parts. And each part is equal to 1/4, right? This is 1/4. And so on and so forth. They're all 1/4 parts. So now we can look at this and say, well, okay, we can cut this up into this many parts. So we can just count them up, or we could just use multiplication, because we can obviously look at this and say there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 parts in 1, right? That's 4 times 3. Okay. So Mr. Putnam can cut blank pieces of rope that are each 1/4 foot long. So again, like we just said, we can go ahead and multiply 1, 2, 3, 4 by 3, and we can get 12. So we get 12 pieces. So the answer is 12. How many pieces can you cut? The answer is 12. So when we complete this division equation, the idea is 3. And this is the opposite of what we just talked about. Don't get this, the order that we write a problem in is super important when we divide. Unlike division, unlike multiplication, either way, this is 1/12, right? It doesn't matter which way it's written, but for division, it does matter which way it's written, okay? So 1/4 divided by a third is 1/12. Look for the patterns here, right? And where 3 divided by 1/4 is going to equal 12. So when I flip-flopped, when it was 1/4 divided by 3, it was 1/12. When it's 3 divided by 1/4, it was 12. Interesting, isn't it? Okay. Look at your model again. Complete the statements below to solve the same division problem using multiplication. So again, we always use multiplication, like we already talked about. Okay. There are blank fourths in each whole number, like I already talked about. I kind of already prefaced this, didn't I? Okay. There are how many fourths in each whole foot? Well, we already talked about up here that in 1 whole foot there are 1, 2, 3, 4, because 4 fourths make whole, so there's 4 fourths, right? There are 4 fourths, correct? Okay. Now it says write a multiplication equation to find the number of fourths in 3 feet. Okay, so it'd be 4, right? Right? It would be 4 times 3, right? That equals 12. Perfect. Okay, there are 4 fourths times 3 feet, and that gives me 12. Easy peasy. Or we could write the other way. We could always write 3 times 4 as well, equals 12. Again, it doesn't matter when we multiply. Okay. Mr. Putnam can cut blank 1/4 pieces of the rope. He can cut 12 1/4 pieces of rope, as we talked about up here. So again, look at the patterns, right? If this is 3 divided by 1/4, and we look at it, so the 3's in the front, right? 3, because it doesn't matter when we multiply, but its idea is, if we look at this as 3 divided by 1/4 is the same, equals, if that equals 12, then 3 times 4 is the same thing. We're saying the same thing here, just using the inverse. So although the fourth and 4 whole, how those are relating and showing the same stuff. Okay. All right. Good deal. Good deal. Okay. I'm going to skip this reflect, and we already talked about this. Let's look at number 2 here. Okay. It says shade the fraction model to show a unit fraction. Write the unit fraction. Okay, shade the fraction model to show a unit fraction. Okay, so again, this isn't anything crazy here. It's just connecting off this. Let's keep it simple here. Okay, so if this is how many parts? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. We have fifths, right? Remember, a unit fraction, as we talked about, a unit fraction has a numerator of 1. So the idea is, if we're going to shade this, we're going to shade in 1, and that makes 1/5. And that's it. That's all it's asking us to do. We're just shading it, so it is a unit fraction, okay, which is 1/5. Okay, awesome. So you All you need to do on your own now is number 3 and number 4. These problems are super similar to ones we just did together. So if you're watching this video and you're paying attention, this is going to be a piece of cake for you. Always turn back the video and watch how we did it. Look back in your book and you will figure this out easy peasy. I highly recommend that you watch my videos because it teaches you stuff and makes your life easier. Okay. All right, guys. Obviously, if you have questions about it, come and ask me. But I appreciate you watching the video because it makes my life easier having to explain it to everybody because I already explained it once time to everybody. It's kind of like in the classroom, right? If you listen to the instruction, usually it does most of the work for itself if you're paying attention to stuff. Obviously, if things don't make sense, ask a question, and it's easiest to do that at noon the next that same day. So I appreciate it, guys. I don't think we're gonna have too much trouble with division of fractions if we're paying attention to this stuff. There's a lot of cool patterns and shortcuts that we can find, and hopefully you're already starting to see some of them. All right, later, dudes.